Happy Easter, everyone! Today is Easter Sunday, so what better opportunity is there to tell you all about Easter in the UK? Now, Easter is celebrated in loads of different countries, but maybe you're not really sure how we celebrate it in the UK. So today we're going to talk all about Easter, how it's celebrated, the food and all that stuff, and what's with all the chocolate eggs. Let's talk about it. Alright mate, I'm Dan and welcome to the Dan Sensei British English podcast, the podcast designed for intermediate and advanced level English learners that want to know more about British life, British culture, and of course, British English. So today's episode is all about Easter. Now, I woke up this morning and I looked at my phone and it said, today is Easter Sunday. And I was a bit surprised because I didn't even realise that Easter were coming up, to be honest. In Japan, we don't really have Easter. We don't care about Easter here in Japan. But when I used to live in England, we often celebrated Easter. It was kind of a big deal, especially when I was a kid. Now, I want to go through a few different things today. Things like the history of Easter in England and some common Easter traditions and, what role does it play in society these days and what's with all the chocolate eggs. That's going to be my favourite section because Easter in England has some pretty wicked chocolate that we can talk about. But let's start with the first part, shall we? What is the history of Easter in England? Now, of course, loads of countries celebrate Easter. It's a Christian holiday that commemorates the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And it's been celebrated ever since Christianity came to England, which is probably, about 2,000 years ago, I guess. So I don't really know when Christians rocked up in England for the first time, but there you go. And nowadays, it does have that religious aspect, where really religious people will often go to church on Easter Sunday and they have not a ceremony, like a service where people can go there for the religious reasons. The other part of it is like the gift giving and the chocolate, right? The chocolate egg thing. So it does kind of have two different groups that celebrate it in different ways. Now, me personally, I'm not a religious person. I don't really follow any religion. It's not for me. If it's for you, great, but it's not for me. So I never really went to church or anything like that on Easter Sunday, but looking by the size of me, yes, I was a fan of the chocolate Easter egg. Still am a fan. Sometimes my mum will send me an Easter egg to Japan for Easter, which is good. So, that kind of stuff is quite popular in England. Some traditions that we have in England is like, of course, the chocolate eggs, which we'll talk about a bit more later. But another thing that's really popular is called a hot cross bun. Now, how can I explain a hot cross bun? It's basically like a bread bun that's like spiced, and then it's got a white cross on the top. And it's usually quite sweet, and we often eat these around Easter. I'm not really sure why or when it started, to be honest, but growing up, always around Easter time, you could buy hot cross buns in the supermarkets and you always eat them around Easter for whatever reason. I guess it's because it's got a cross on top. And, cross, Jesus, Easter, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Other stuff that we do, of course, is the church services and some cultural traditions usually around this time. If you remember, in a podcast previously, I talked about the cheese rolling festival, right? In Gloucester, where they throw the cheese down the hill and run after it. That is usually Easter that happens. It's usually around now where they're doing that. So probably even as I'm recording this podcast, a bunch of mental people are running downhill trying to chase some cheese because it's Jesus' coming back to life day. What a sentence that were. It's not a sentence I ever thought I'd say, but I did, and we all have to live with that. So, very good. Easter egg hunting is kind of a thing as well that seems to be more popular now than when I was a kid. And it's basically like you'll get a bunch of little mini eggs, like chocolate eggs, and you hide them around, and little kids get a basket and they have to run round and search for the little chocolate eggs and put them in their basket. And it's kind of like a treasure hunt for kids that instead of treasure they find in chocolate eggs for some reason. Now, I don't think I ever did this as a kid, but my sister's got 2 kids and they do it. So maybe it's quite popular now, or I know it's definitely popular in the past, but that's a thing. And some people will decorate eggs as well. Like you get a regular egg, you take the middle part out, and you can like dye the shell and paint it and decorate it and decorate the Easter egg, right? And I never really did that as a kid either. But, you know, if you go on Instagram today, you're bound to see people showing decorated eggs. Now, I feel that that's more of an American thing. I don't know why. I feel like I've seen it in American TV shows and movies and stuff before, but I've never actually done that or seen that in my time in England. So I don't really know about that one, to be honest. But you might see it. Who knows? Who can tell? It's a weird world and people do weird things all the time, so why not? Now, on a complete tangent, I want to talk about this egg thing, because this is so weird to me. When I moved to Japan, there were a load of like cultural events and holidays that I didn't really understand, right? I couldn't get my head around it. I'll give you an example. In Japan, there's a holiday called Setsubun. And basically, what happens on this holiday is kids get handfuls of like beans. And somebody dresses up as a demon and the kids throw beans at the demon so they go away. So for some reason, demons are scared of beans. And then for some reason, everybody goes to the convenience store and they buy a rolled sushi, like a sushi, but it's like a roll. And they all face, now this is funny, they all face a specific direction, like maybe northwest or southeast, at the same time, and they all eat the sushi roll in silence. What? What? And there were a few of these things that I just couldn't understand. But then one day, a student in one of my classes was like, Dan, what's Easter? Why the rabbit? Why the eggs? And I never thought about it, just normal for me. But then as I tried to explain to him, I realised how insane it actually sounds to somebody who's not in that culture, right? So just listen to this explanation. We have a certain Sunday that's not the same day every year, by the way. It moves, something to do with the moon, to celebrate the fact that Jesus Christ came back to life. And we celebrate that by a giant humanoid rabbit delivering chocolate eggs to children. Now, what on earth is the connection between Jesus coming back to life and a giant rabbit delivering eggs to kids? I wouldn't mind, but rabbits don't even lay eggs. Where are they getting the eggs from? It doesn't make any sense. So when I explained that to one of my students, they just looked at me like I were insane. And I understand that reaction because it sounds insane. I don't know why chocolate eggs. I don't know why rabbits. And I don't know what that's got to do with Jesus Christ. But here in the year 2023, that is exactly what Easter is. Now, that's a bit weird, isn't it? The other thing I don't really understand, and I touched on it, is like, why does the date change? Easter is never the same day. Like Christmas is always December 25th, right? It never changes. It's not suddenly January 14th or something. It's always December 25th. So why does Easter just pick and choose when it's going to actually happen? Like, it's usually end of March, beginning of April, but it's a different day every year. We always move it to Sunday, you know, but what is that all about? And we also have Easter Monday and Good Friday. The best thing about Easter in England is it's usually a 4-day weekend. Easter Friday is usually a day off, a bank holiday, and Easter Monday is also a day off, a bank holiday, and then weekend is you're supposed to be off anyway, innit? So that's the best part about it, 4 days off work. Well, it used to be. England previously used to make a big deal about Easter, and like everything would be shut. But now, not really. Even with Christmas these days, you'll find places that are open. I used to work on Christmas Day a lot. But, 20, 30, 40 years ago, unheard of. Everybody'd be off for Easter. Everybody'd be off for Christmas. But not so much anymore. I don't think it's as important. And that kind of tradition is kind of getting weaker over the years. But yeah, you're supposed to have 4 days off. But whether you do or not will completely depend on how much your boss needs you to go to work, I guess. For me, it never really bothered me, to be honest, but I don't really care. So working on Christmas or Easter never bothered me. I used to, honestly, for Christmas, I used to volunteer to work so people that had families could, spend it with their kids, because I don't have kids. I don't care about Christmas that much, so I'll just go to work and you can enjoy it with your family. Why not? Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about in this weird podcast related to Easter somehow is chocolate. Now, I already mentioned that the chocolate egg thing confuses me, but England goes mental for chocolate around this time of year. And it's specifically certain kinds of chocolate that you can only buy around Easter. Specifically, the big two are Cadbury's Creme eggs. Now, let me try and explain what this is if you've never seen it. It's like a small chocolate egg, about the size of a real egg, a little bit smaller. And of course, it's made of like a thick chocolate. And inside the chocolate, it's like a fondant, like a liquid, like a sugary liquid, basically. But it's quite thick, like a paste. A sugary paste, let's say. It doesn't sound great when I say sugary paste, but it's delicious. And it's white, of course, and then there's a bit of yellow in there because it's like an egg, right? And you buy it and it comes in like a little egg box with 6 little chocolate eggs. And they start selling these, basically, it used to be they started selling them just before Easter, but now it gets earlier and earlier every year because the chocolate company Cadbury's is trying to get as much money as they can. But it used to be like, you'd be like in the supermarket, oh, Cadbury's Creme eggs are out. Yes, they're finally released this year. So you can probably buy them for a month or two each year before they disappear again. And that's kind of cool. I always used to like that tradition. They're not even that delicious, but it's the fact you can only buy them for 2 months of the year that made them a little bit special. So I used to like that. And we also have Cadbury's mini eggs. Now these are tiny, tiny little eggs, different colours, all pastel colours, pinks and blues and yellows. And they're about the size of your thumb, I guess, or half of your thumb. Let's say, what a great measurement. They're about the size of half of your thumb, and inside is like a hard chocolate, and on the outside is like a sugar shell, kind of like an M&M, I guess. It's a bit like M&Ms, and they come in a yellow bag, and they're super popular around Easter. Once again, you can't buy them all year, just around Easter time. That's a big deal. And I think the other one that I always remembered was like, that chocolate company Lindt. And they make like a Lindt Easter bunny. Like it's a solid chocolate sculpture of a rabbit, but inside is hollow. So it's not solid, is it, Dan? Come on. It's a hollow sculpture of a Easter rabbit made by Lindt, I guess is like a Belgian chocolate company. So they're popular around this time of year as well. Time of year as well. Now on top of this, you obviously get Easter eggs. And they start from as little as £1 when it's a small egg made of chocolate. It's hollow, and it's like 2 shells together that make an egg. And they're about £1 usually. Well, they used to be, probably about £20 now, knowing inflation. But when I was young, they were £1, and they were the cheap ones. And you go all the way up to these like mega fancy ones that are huge, and they've got different snacks and fillings inside of it, and all your favourite chocolate brands usually have an Easter egg out at this time of year, you know, whether it's M&M's or Snickers or, you know, Cadbury's, whatever. There's loads of them, and there's loads of different varieties. So whatever your favourite chocolate bar is, there's probably an Easter egg version of this. And for me, I always used to absolutely buzz on something called a double-decker. This was an English chocolate bar, and I always used to get like a double-decker Easter egg. Did I? Now I think about it, I'm not sure that's real, but I do like double-deckers, so whatever. If it isn't real, Cadbury's, sort it out, mate, and send me one because I gave you the idea. It's the least you could do. Now, that is the chocolate side of things, and I think that people often get together for like an Easter Sunday dinner, a little bit like on Christmas, where they'll eat like a family meal. It'll be some kind of roast meat. I want to say lamb. I don't know, I never really did this, so lamb and meat and vegetables and blah blah blah. Very similar to Sunday roast, which I mentioned in a previous podcast as well. I'm pretty sure people get together and eat that kind of stuff at Easter. So yeah, that in a nutshell, or eggshell, I suppose I should say, is Easter in the UK. Hopefully you found some of that useful and not completely useless, or at least a bit entertaining, you know. So yeah, good stuff. I'd love to know what you think about Easter. Is it something that you celebrate? Is it something that you've never really encountered before? Do you celebrate it in your country? I don't know. Let me know. There's the comment section down there if you're listening to this on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, you can also answer the poll that's on there as well. And while you're here, do me a favour, like, subscribe, follow, leave a rating, whatever it is that people do these days on the internet. Please do that, because it'll help and it'll make me smile. So what else do you need? And while you're down here, if you look down in the description, there's a link to get my A to Z of British slang guide. It's a free book that I made full of British slang that'll help you understand British people. What more could you ask for? Totally free. Put your details in there. I'll send it you straight away. But for today, that's everything. I hope you have a good Easter, and I'll catch you in the next one.